manage pests. Wildlife Control Consultant, LLC, Pest Geek Podcast, Living the Wildlife Podcast, Stephen M. Vantassel, or their or his affiliates are not responsible for followers' use of the information provided here. Hi, everyone. Stephen Vantassel here, bringing you another episode of Living the Wildlife as part of the Pest Geek Podcast family. Glad to have you on board. I hope you've had a great week. As you know, we typically publish our podcast on Friday. So I had quite a busy week. I was doing a lot of training this week for the state that I work for. So did how many presentations? 7 presentations in 4 days. So actually was kind of light. Normally we're doing 10 presentations in 5 days, but it was a little light this year. So enjoyed that very much, but glad to be back home and doing a podcast here. Do take a few minutes, if you would, to subscribe to the channel, and we'd love to hear from you as well. You can reach me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail. Tell me about what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show, ideas for future shows. We'd love to hear you. So today I'm very pleased. We have a special guest. His name is Casey Lewis. He is the CEO and founder of Rhino Digital Media, Inc. But he operates, you'll know him, that those of you who pay attention to the pest control industry. Now, I know that some of you out there certainly do. They operate under Rhino Pest Control Marketing, and you can find them at rhinopestcontrolmarketing.com, and they're in marketing services. So certainly that's going to be a challenge for many of us in this field. Certainly it has been for me, but otherwise we're glad to have him on board. Mr. Lewis, we're really glad to have you on the Living the Wildlife podcast. So introduce yourself to the community.
Well, thank you, Stephen, and I appreciate the opportunity to join you and your viewers. As you said, my name's Casey Lewis. We operate Rhino Pest Control Marketing, and that's really how we're known in the PCO, WCO world. But to give you a little background about me, it's kind of an interesting story. So I, prior to this, was in the corporate world and ran nationwide the sales force for AT&T Yellow Pages.
Okay.
It had become YP.com, then it became DexYP. Now I think it's called Thrive. But during the course of those times, as it was clear that it was coming to an end, and I had been a 30-year AT&T guy, I got very frustrated, very disappointed in the direction that things were going. And as a result of that, I started Rhino Digital Media Incorporated, specifically at the time to go after and help local businesses that were being severely disrupted because the Yellow Pages was basically going away. And that had been the only means that they had used for marketing and advertising, many of them for many years.
Right.
And so as a result of that, that sort of frustration, I went in, started Rhino Digital Media Incorporated. One of my sons was actually working for AT&T. He came with me. He's still here with us. And then as that evolved, what I found was I really, really enjoyed, always did, the home service type businesses. And then as that evolved into pest control, I really don't know why we ended up in that industry, in that arena. We just ended up with several different clients, all of whom we got along with very well. They were typically a family-owned business. We are run very much like a family-owned business. And as such, that just grew. And we took our experiences, my experiences with the Yellow Pages, which, if you're familiar nowadays with marketing jargon,
okay,
there's what is referred to as inbound marketing and then outbound marketing. And the Yellow Pages, many people consider to be the original McCoy of inbound. It was really the only place once upon a time that you would go to before Google.
Oh yeah,
you would actually see,
I'm old enough to remember it.
yeah, well,
some of our audience probably doesn't know what we're talking about.
well, you'd be surprised how many new business clients that we get, because I'll get some old dog that's running a pest control company, and he just hates the fact that the Yellow Pages is gone, and he's got to deal with all these 20-year-olds and all this techno mumbo jumbo and so forth. And that really has become where we fit in the marketplace. So I have several people working for us. They're all very, very highly skilled, very good employees in a cross section of marketing expertise. So website development, content writing, graphic design, a number of different things. And the way we operate is we pay these people very good money. They're all local. We don't outsource. We don't do any of those things that I don't particularly think are the right way to do things. But that, again, that's just me.
Yep.
But we are then able to, as we grow our family of pest control and WCO companies, we really only work with 2 WCOs. And, but however, the process and the things we do are equally effective for a WCO as a PCO, or as even a painting. We have several painting contractors. It's the same thing. What we're trying to do is help them to attract local business people that may be looking for what it is that they provide, and how do you get to them, and how do you, maneuver through all this technology to get that phone call or that message. And that really is what we do. But so what we really try to accomplish is to find business owners who are really frustrated in the marketplace because they know there's got to be a way to get this to come up so that people can call them. And they see many of their competitors when they go do a local search or when they're on their cell phone, and they get frustrated. Why in the world is that not me? And so what we do as a company and as an organization is we've broken that down into really the 10 component steps, all of which need to be mastered in a given marketplace so you can really dominate. And a lot of it really revolves around, first, Google tools, and then secondly, content, if you know what I mean. So for example, right now, what you and I are doing, we're creating a piece of content you're going to place out on your, I don't know if you have a YouTube channel, or I know you have a podcast, but you'll place this out on your networks, and then hopefully that gets indexed, and maybe somebody somewhere, a WCO or a pest control owner or something like that, is looking around on the internet, stumbles across it, comes, listens to this discussion that we're having, and they say, hey, I want to find out some more. And that really is how it works and how it happens. We help many smaller companies to do a lot of it on their own. It's really a somewhat of a self-serving opportunity for us, because what we know is most small business owners will get to a point, if they do many of the things that are necessary to grow their business, they'll get to a point where they can't manage the leads, the inquiries, and the things that are coming in, and the things necessary to keep those coming in. So then we become an opportunity to work with them as a partner, and we will provide all the services for things like their email marketing. So if they're going to be doing blogging, we'll write it. If they want to be doing YouTube videos and posting, we will provide all of those services in this spectrum of online content to get it out there, to put them in a position where they will grow exponentially in terms of local index, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let me know.
So just to sort of summarize here a little bit, so you have the ability to work with small companies to help to basically train them to do some of this work on their own, which obviously would save them some cost because they're doing their own labor. But as they get successful, they can call you and say, hey, I'm getting so much work, I need to put some of this marketing burden onto someone else, and then you're able to grow with them as they grow their business, if I heard you correctly.
No, that's exactly right. And I've been at this a really long time, worked with literally thousands of home service businesses through a great many years. What happens in a small business situation typically, Stephen, is that a business owner looks at advertising, marketing as cost, as expense, and they can't get out of that cycle. And what I will tell them oftentimes, if that's where you're at, just don't do it. Yeah, I mean, what's the point? If you're losing money doing it, don't do it. On the other hand, marketing and advertising should be a profitable return on an investment if done correctly. Most of the time, what happens is people will splatter their advertising and marketing around without really knowing how to strategically take that money and put it into a campaign and be able to make money on it. So what we do is we try to teach business owners how to do that. Start small. And then once they see that, once they get to the point where they understand that, they start to realize the money they spend is just a tool for the money they're going to make, the profit they're going to make if they do it right. And it's very similar to, what once upon a time, dealing in the old Yellow Page days where we would have to go out and work with a business owner, and there may be 2 or 3 phone books in his area, and there may be 3 or 4 headings in each phone book. So now you had 12 sort of individual units. And if you just said, well, let's just take a dollar number and spread it out across all of them, you ended up getting nothing because none of it was effective. However, had you taken that same dollar amount and maybe purchased one nice ad in one location that got some profit, all of a sudden now you're looking at, well, maybe I should take that same big ad, spread it out to all of them. You're spending 10 times what you had originally thought about, but you're making money, you're making a profit. So it's teaching and advising, but more importantly, showing people how to get that concept across. And
Right.
I, as an old dog, a lot of times I can talk old dog to old dog, some of these owners who really do get tired. Again, not in no way am I discrediting some of these young salespeople out there. My son is one of them, but they just don't have that experience. They don't understand cash flow. They don't understand sweat equity. And so what we try to do is take them through that process. Then once you get to that point, the next step, excuse me, is just to put into place those things that are the best out there that they can use that will provide them the ability to go, for example, email marketing.
Mhm.
Email marketing, many of our clients, they look at it, okay, well, we'll give you a list of our customers and we'll send them a newsletter. Well, okay, that may or may not work. However, what if we segment that list into the various types of customers that you have? And then we are able to provide individual promotional opportunities that are different to each because of where they sit with you today in terms of trying to elevate them to, so for example, in pest control, what we want, if you want to be a millionaire, we want 2,000 monthly recurring customers. That equals $1 million in most cases, give or take. But that's where we're going with it. We're trying to get to that point. So from a strategy standpoint, if you want to be a millionaire and you want to understand how to get there, it starts by going and attracting 2,000 customers. And you can get that right down to that means 80 a month. How am I going to do that? What do I need to do? Do I need Google ads? Do I need door hangers? Do I go stand on the corner in a hot dog outfit with a sign? What is it that I do to go get
Right.
those 2,000? Because now once I have those 2,000, now I have $1 million cash coming in. Now I can start to parlay that into some other things. Now I can look a little more broadly at advertising.
So
Anyways,
if
I don't
someone,
I don't mean to be too cavalier. Does that
yeah,
make sense what I'm
yeah.
saying?
So so someone starting out, so you're working with them. Let's say someone is, they're a single person operation. Maybe they've haven't even been in business for a year. Well, let's just make it easy. They've been in business for a year. They're full time, but obviously their first year has been a struggle. But they're making it. They're paying their bills and they're keeping their head above water. But they're looking to take it to another level. Do you have an idea of what would be, and we'll call it a small market of maybe a city of, let's say, 250,000, just to
Okay.
kind of make it try to make some sort of standardize here. What would be a reasonable amount of money for someone to say, in order to be, if you're going to be serious about some marketing, what would be like a minimum in order to even start playing the marketing game? What would it be? Is it $1,000? Is it $2,000? What would they be? Or is it a percentage of their gross?
No,
What
no,
would be a principle?
it's actually pretty easy, and we will typically work with a client to customize a budget around what they have to get started with.
Mhm.
But what you just described, so a smaller community, maybe 200,000 to 300,000 in population, so forth.
Right. Yeah.
Those are the best places to be. Where we typically get into trouble is when someone is, say, in Houston,
Oh,
and they want to
yeah.
come in, and there's 57 pest control companies, 20 of them that have been marketing there for 10 years or more. Very
Yeah.
tough. So The first thing we will do is come in and audit your website, and invariably your website's not going to be in good shape and you really need to upgrade it, or you need to just flat replace it. And that is generally going to cost somewhere between $2,000 to $3,000, unless you get, into a large market area where you need a lot of pages. But that's
Right.
the number one expense, the single most important thing, because once you do that properly and you optimize all of those pages and your content is all optimized, so all those steps are in play, that then you now have a hub or a portal that's going to be able to manage and evaluate all of your marketing from.
Yeah.
The next step is then to go into developing and creating all of your Google tools. Your Google business profile is far and beyond the single most important thing a local pest control or WCO can do in their marketplace, and that encompasses the reviews. If you don't have 100 reviews minimum, you have to go get them, and you have to make that a strategy. That doesn't cost anything.
Right.
The next thing that's the most complicated,
Honest reviews.
honest,
Honest reviews.
well, and let me tell you, Google's pretty sharp. They know
Yeah.
they know where that local person is coming from. They
Yeah.
know likely if that's one of your contacts versus one of your customers.
Right.
So they're pretty good at this, and
Yeah.
you're
So
absolutely right. They need to
don't lie. Don't
yeah,
lie.
no, and you can only get so many from your friends and family.
Right.
You really want your customers to be doing that. We use a software called Bird Eye that's a really top-notch software. When we are setting up a client, and we will manage that campaign for them. We'll teach them how they can every day send out what's called a check-in when they leave a service account. And you'd be surprised how quickly those good reviews come. And it's, again, it sometimes is eye-opening for a client, and we tell them all this all the time. Don't be afraid to find out that people think you're doing a lousy job. That's valuable information, and you shouldn't run from it and hide from it, because if that's what your reviews reveal to you, then you need to take a look at your business and rethink maybe how you're talking and treating and working with people in the community. But then when you get into costing and doing it yourself or paying somebody, content, which will revolve around for this industry, predominantly video and blog content, so written content. And that content needs to be created in what we refer to as a topic cluster. So let's just say, for example, as a WCO, like we have a WCO right now that's he's in the Four Corners area of New Mexico and Colorado there. And they have a lot of issues with coyotes there.
Right.
And so, for example, in his case, he wants to really be a coyote trapper, and then he is taking into consideration all of the local concerns about killing them and harming them and this kind of thing. That would be something, as a local person, he would want to do a lot of content on, around blog articles talking about this, around videos, maybe showing what he's doing, showing if he's doing things in a humane way, but building this content and then understanding how to optimize it, because then it will start to show up free in organic local search. And when you're doing things like that, I can almost guarantee you very few, if any, of your competitors are doing it and doing it effectively. So we create that, and we will teach the owner how he or she can create that content. And typically they may start doing that. And that's what I'm saying, where we will get to a point to where we will do all of it. And to answer your question around money, what we will typically do with a basic startup client, absent the cost of the website, but we can amortize that website over a year into the cost. But we'll do a basic setup of about $1,200 to $1,500 a month. And what we will do for that is we will write their blogs weekly. We will post weekly to their Google My Business profile. We'll post weekly to social media. We'll keep those posts and that content around a topic cluster that's for them. And then we'll also keep the the page performance on their website up to snuff. So that's SEO work. And a lot of
Right.
people like to try to make it real mysterious and secret what they do with SEO. SEO
Yeah.
is not secret. It's
Right.
not some proprietary thing. You don't have to go to India to hire a guy there. You can do SEO very effectively, especially if you have a local WordPress website. You can just install some free software on there that will allow you to manage the page level on-page SEO, name and set up your alt tags on your images, your page titles, your meta descriptions. So those basic kinds of things.
Mm.
Then we will go from there up. I mean, we can set up all your Google Ads accounts. We can set up and manage your Google local service ads. If you want to do other things like Yelp, like maybe Home Advisor, if you want to create landing pages specifically for certain elements of what you're doing, we will just take it from there. We have clients that we work with that are smaller, that pay us as little as $750 a month, up to our platinum clients will usually spend with us about 3,500 to 4,000 a month. And once again, all of what we do, all of it just really revolves around hours.
Right.
So how many
Right.
hours do we need to dedicate to your account to do what you need? And then we're going to have a blended rate that takes into consideration all the people working on your account. We're going to bill you for that. At the end of the day, what we want to be, what I want to be. I don't like in marketing where what they do is they try to set up the reporting and the KPI management so that it baffles their client. It looks good. It's got charts, it's got diagrams, it's got arrows going everywhere. But at the end of the day, what I find with my clients, where I try to get real with them, we will provide all those detailed data sheets. We can break things down on Excel and show. But at the end of the day, most business owners, and this goes all the way back to my old Yellow Page days, they really want to know how much I gave you $5,000.
Right. Right.
Okay, you got five. Okay, yeah, you tell me you're doing all this cool stuff with it. That's great.
Right.
How much did I make? Not in leads,
Right.
not in impressions, not in
Conversions.
eyeballs.
Yeah.
How much cash did I put in the
That's
bank?
right.
How much
Return on
cash sell?
ROI. Yep.
Yes.
ROI. Yeah.
And real
Return on.
money.
Yeah.
And we tell them, I mean, it's been as basic as time goes back. You should be making 3 times what you spend. So if you're giving us, let's say 5,000, you should be doing 15,000 in sales. If you are, what we find is you're going to care less and less about us,
Mhm.
and you're going to just be more inclined to be following up on the leads. And I will say to you, what's funny, what's interesting. So my background is sales. I had at one point 4,000 sales reps. So I had key accounts, outside sales reps, inside sales reps, and call centers nationwide. And I mean, I will tell you, and we start with many of our clients that are already in play with what we refer to as a sales conversion rate. If you're not doing 50%, so if 10 people call your business this month, just inquiring, and 5 don't turn into a legitimate new customer, something's wrong. And if you know you're only doing 2, and you can do this, you can take advantage of the skills that would take that 2 to 5, you can double your sales revenue without doing anything, no marketing, no nothing, just paying close attention and managing what you already have.
Mhm.
So we also will put those things in play so that we're teaching our clients how to use some sales skills. We understand they're generally not sales types, but use some basic sales skills and pay close attention to how much volume you're getting in leads and take advantage of those. So
Yeah.
anyway, we call that our pest marketing domination system. That's why our podcast is, pest control marketing domination podcast. We call it market domination, and that's really what we mean by it. And I can show really, really extreme examples of companies that we've been working with maybe over 5 years that are now in positions, and these are small and medium-sized businesses
Mhm.
that are in very enviable positions in their local market with regard to the organic local traffic they receive every single month that converts into leads. And when you get to that point, we're at a point with them where most of our support and what we're doing with them revolves around helping them to continually convert those leads, have side sell opportunities, et
Mhm.
cetera.
So
Anyway,
yeah, one of the this is helpful. So the question that I've always that I would have here, and perhaps someone in our audience would have as well, and that is, so if, like I said, let's go back to that same person. He's been in business for a year. He's in that small market, $250,000 to 300,000, as you said before. So now he's at a place where he's looking to start. So he's starting off maybe with his website audit of $3,000, and so he's starting that in realistically, in terms of your experience, because obviously every business and market's going to be different. When should they start seeing a return on investment? Because obviously it's going to take time for Google to put some of those new things into their algorithm, I guess, for lack of a better word. It's going to take time
right.
for them to index the site. So it's not going to, I think it's unfair to say, hey, why am I pay someone $3,000 and all of a sudden, next day I should be earning $9,000. I mean, I just think that's ridiculous. I mean, it'd be awesome if it worked. But
Yeah,
how long should someone be looking at and saying, all right, how do I evaluate when am I getting a return? Is it 6 months? Is it another year? Or is it faster than that?
it, it depends.
Sure.
And that's a great question. So typically, to get indexed in a local market to the point to where you start to see we call page performance,
Hmm.
but individual pages that get indexed and start showing up is 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months.
Now,
Hmm.
what we do, and this is very, very important, where most initial small local business owners in this industry fail is they go find somebody to do a website for them for $500. They try to put all their target pests, all their services, all the areas that they cover all over all the same pages. And what that does is it confuses Google, which is nothing more than an algorithm.
Right.
Google's not a person, it's a computer algorithm that's designed to read, crawl, and index every URL on the planet. Okay. And so if it doesn't really know very clearly what those pages are, it will simply ignore them. They won't index at all. So when you start, your website has to be optimized specifically and in accordance with your Google business profile. So if you're in My Town, USA, you want your primary site optimized for My Town, USA. Then if you serve your town, their town, Mayberry, you're going to have additional site pages that are going to be built and optimized specifically for those areas with those services, with those target pests.
Mm.
Now, we call that your sweat equity. It's important you do that and you stick with it until they're optimized and appearing on page one of all those searches. And that takes time.
Yep.
And that's what's referred to as the organic path of your online
Right. Right.
strategy. And
And
that's
and how many links are there on the home page? Because I've been noticing with Google, there seems to be almost half of my screen is the ads, and so the organic search is almost halfway down my screen. So it used to be not that heavy. It used to be there might be one ad at the top, and then you'd have maybe, I don't know, 9, 12 sites below it. Now it's almost half and half. Is that just my imagination, or am I
no,
just
no,
okay?
no, and it's Google, and it's what a local business has to contend with. So at the
Yeah.
top, you're going to have the three Google guaranteed ads up there. Those are called the Google Local Services ads.
Oh, okay.
Then underneath that, you're going to have your primary Google ads, and there's generally 3 or 4 of those.
Okay.
Then you're going to have your Google Maps listings, which that's called the 3-pack.
Okay.
Then when you get underneath that, you're going to sometimes see Yelp. You're going to see
Mhm.
some thumbtack stuff. You're going to see maybe some Yelp, YP.com.
Oh, wow.
However, what we're finding as a result of a lot of that gobbledygook,
Hmm.
people tend to look still and try to find a local pest control company.
Yeah.
And that is where um, your optimization comes into play, your page title, your meta description, the things that you're saying and using. However, so that side of the equation, that's your free organic search results,
Hmm.
your blog articles are getting indexed, all that stuff's happening. And again, it's hard to explain without showing, and I do show it.
Sure. Well, we can share screens if you'd like.
Well, but taking now this
Hmm.
path, that path.
Yep.
So we are very cognizant, and I'm very honest. So if you called me and you're in a mess and your site is just not very good, you don't have any content, you're not indexing for anything, and there's 2 or 3 competitors in your market that are doing a pretty good job,
Hmm.
I'm going to tell you, look, Stephen, we are not going to put a website for you up on Tuesday, and Thursday you're getting leads. It's
Right.
just not
Right.
going to
Yeah.
happen.
That would
Now,
that would be very.
however,
Yeah.
if while we're doing this and we can show you what's happening, that's why we set up Google Search Console. That's why we set up some of these things. But while we're doing this, we can very simply, if you want to, we can go set up some campaigns. So for like this guy over there in Four Corners for coyotes, we can do it, oftentimes for bed bugs. In the summertime, we might do some stuff for mosquito care. So we can set up an individual campaign. We can set up a landing page. We can drive all of the ad activity straight to that, measure it exactly, record the phone calls and tell you, okay, Stephen, we invested $1,000 into this campaign. You got 4 jobs. Those jobs were worth $600 a piece. So you
Mhm.
made $2,400 for 1,000. Do you want to keep doing it?
Fair
And
enough.
and so you have these 2 avenues. You have organic,
Hmm.
your online sweat equity, long-term involvement, the thing you're going to quit at because you don't have the panache, if you will, and I will challenge you on this,
Hmm.
to stick with it. And that's where I will show people, look at some of our clients that stuck with it and look where they're at now. They're
Yeah.
outperforming Terminex, they're outperforming Orkin because they just hung in there and went with it. And then in the meantime, I understand you got to make money. You can't
Right.
just pay us and do nothing and hope and
Hmm.
wish for the best. So let's go look at what other things can we do. And believe it or not, so the United States Postal Service has a service now. I don't know if you ever heard. It's called Door to Door Direct.
I have. I have heard something familiar with that. Yeah, where you can target a particular zip code or a neighborhood and target advertising to that
It
specific
is
area.
really cool because
Yeah.
you can, even if you know that there's some lower income areas you don't necessarily really want to spend money
Hmm.
advertising in, and then maybe some other market areas where these would really be good opportunities for us. You can create some wonderful, nice full color little ads, postcard type, flyer type, and then you take them over to the post office and you say, I want them to go on this postal route, and you don't have to put stamps on it, nothing.
And they
And
just
the
go.
post carrier just goes and drops one off at every business and every residence on his or her route.
Yeah.
And then you can do door hangers in that way. And the reason I say this is, again, some people, we want to get so hung up on how sophisticated everything is and how cool it is. And it is. I mean, we have to set things up for voice search activation. So if someone says, hey, Siri, you know, um, can you find me a wildlife company here local? We want you to come up. And there's ways you have to do things you have to do to make sure that happens. So you have all that techno cool stuff. But hey, there's a thought right now that direct mail is becoming a better option nowadays in many markets because nobody gets direct mail anymore. There's not a lot of money spent
Oh,
on it anymore because it's
yes.
thought to be old and antiquated.
Yeah. And,
You know,
and our inboxes are so full. Who's reading their inbox anymore? I mean,
yeah,
the
well,
with the email,
exactly, and
it's
that's why
overwhelming. Yeah.
and that's why messaging now and text
Yeah,
messaging and using online applications is becoming a big deal. But I don't mean to digress because you're
yeah,
asking a very straightforward question, which is that small guy that really wants to get started and what should he really do? And honestly, to me, you got to get the website straightened out. You don't have to
right.
spend a lot of money, but
Yeah.
you definitely need to get that thing optimized. And you need to understand the difference between an optimized website and a pretty website. And the way I'll explain it a lot of times, you can put a beautiful, full color, well lit, state of the art billboard in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and it's just not going to do a whole lot for
That's
you.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is where I'm glad you talked about the direct mailing aspect, because one of my questions I wanted to ask you that came up to my mind here was, a lot of emphasis is obviously on internet searches, and that certainly makes sense. But I was wondering what role there was for the old traditional ways of advertising, such as, newspapers, like especially neighborhood type magazine, neighborhood newspapers. Like I never read the newspaper when I was in Massachusetts, right? So I'm based in Montana, for those that you don't know. But when I moved to Montana, I'm in a city now, a city of 6,000 people, and there's only 12,000 in the county. And it takes you an hour at 70 miles an hour to cross the county. Okay, so I mean, Montana is just, the scale is just amazing. Where when I was in Springfield, Mass, a city of probably 150,000, but the whole Pioneer Valley had well over a million. I mean, there were more people within 30 minutes of my house than live in the entire state of Montana. And now I'm finding myself looking at the newspaper. So you talked about direct mail. Do you also incorporate anything or discuss newspaper? What about television cable ads? Those can
Yes.
be pretty targeted.
So yes, yes, all of the above,
All the
and it
above.
all
Okay.
works. What it all gets down to, and what we were talking about earlier about sort of the smaller community, big community. So you're not going to go into San Francisco, say for example, and do television advertising or
Right.
even
You
cable.
will
It's just too expensive. It's out
go
of control.
right.
Now, I have a client that's out in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley in Northern California. Um, and they can do some really cool stuff on um, local cable television. So they've got some ads running that you just can't do anywhere. So it depends on where you are, and it depends on how you measure that. Because what's most important in advertising and marketing always is measuring.
Mm,
Things look cool, sound cool, feel cool. And what most sales reps in these industries are going to do is try to sell you on the vanity of what's going on here. So it's got real cool leather interior, it's got the moon roofs, it's got all this, but they're going to avoid talking to you about the KPIs or key performance indicators, which is how do I measure exactly how many people I got? And when they start telling you that this is more awareness and this is that, run. Okay, because you don't want to buy marketing and advertising as a small business that's about awareness. Because I mean, look, Budweiser, Coca-Cola, they can buy awareness advertising.
right.
Acme Wildlife Control probably cannot. So just get away from it. But they do work, and they're very effective. And if you drive the results, if you use tracked phone numbers, for example, in that ad, if you drive it to a specific landing page so you can measure all the traffic that came there and what became of it, that is what a good marketing company should do with you. And that's where you want someone that will partner with you. And that's where we fall. And so, because I hate being a vendor, and when we have a client that looks at us like a vendor, we're just there to do tasks for
Mhm.
fees.
Right.
We really want to get out of that relationship. We want to be able to work with you to do things like what you and I are talking about right here. Hey, I've been thinking about newspaper. Well, I would say to you, let's try it. Let's go find out how much they charge. Let's find out how much it would be to have it out there frequently for a month. And then let's put some goals around that. Now, I'll tell you a story though. This is a funny story. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada. We've been here now. This is year 4. We relocated the company from Northern California, from the Bay Area, and I moved here myself, physically moved, and I have a home here.
Hmm.
We got a guy that was doing our Christmas tree lighting. And then this year he sent us a note, said he's gone, he's not going to be doing it anymore. I kid you not. I spent a month trying to get a company that would come out and tell me about Christmas tree lights, how much you want. And all they want, well, we're going to do a Google map and we're going to let you know. And our minimum, we just want you to know, it's $1,500. And I said, $1,500, I just have a small house.
Right.
So I'm calling online and I'm getting these call centers where what they obviously are, they're big companies that have local guys they just put on some contract or something,
Right.
they send them
Right.
out. I can't for the life of me. So finally, I wish I had it in front of me and I don't. I'm in a community called Summerlin, and Summerlin puts out a little community, little pamphlet that
Mhm.
goes out. Like you, I'm sitting there one day drinking coffee and I just thumbing through this thing. And in the corner, there's a little ad and it says Christmas tree light installation. And I call the guy and the guy shows up at my house and he's friendly and he's courteous and he looks around and he measures, says, I can do it for X. I said, great, let's just do it. He said, I'll try to get it on the day you want, etc. So my point is in that you want to be that guy
Mhm.
in all places that you can, because what you were talking about earlier, where you come up there and there's all these ads and there's all this stuff, people are finding what I found. You got to weed through that and find that nice local guy you want to do business with, right? Which is going to be your pest control or your wildlife control operator in your area. And so what we just want to make sure is that in the long term, over time, your business can bust through on all of those fronts and dominate. That's what we refer to it, dominate, without spending so much money that you're not making any money, because you have to do that at the same time. You have to manage your money right so that
Right.
you're able to do that. Like in pest control, one of our biggest problems in pest control we deal with is because you're making sales that you're receiving over a 12-month period, but you're paying, and maybe say Google monthly, it sometimes will take month 13, month 14 before you get beyond that break even. And now you're actually seeing good profits
Right.
beyond that. And you have to be willing to suck that up and realize that you're paying Google by the month and you're making a sale that's worth 600, but maybe it's only $50 a month times 12. So
Yeah.
you really don't get all that money till month 12. And now month 13, you're starting to see month 2, month 3, month 4 all start to come in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Sometimes you're going to be in a loss in the short term because you're looking at it in terms of the long. You have to have that plan for the progression. So this is it's like that snowball effect. Not a whole lot's going on in the beginning, but you have to
We
be
call it a hockey
prepared.
stick, right? You
Yeah.
get that hockey stick. And it's,
Yep.
again, if you went to the Small Business Administration to get a loan,
Mhm.
this single thing, they're gonna look at two things primarily. One is your sources of income. So make sure you just don't have one source.
Right.
And then beside that, they're going to look at what they refer to as your break-even point, because they thoroughly expect you to go in and lose money for a while. You're buying new stuff, you're getting things set up, you got to get your truck wrapped, you got to do these things, so you're going in the tank. But what they're looking at is where and when are you going to get to that break even? And now, again, that hockey stick, get above and beyond that. So there is um Stephen, one of the things I did also in life was I was a high school football coach for a number of years, and I loved it. And it's because you can apply so many of the business principles to football,
Mhm.
or football principles to business. And I will tell you, when I was a young guy, the thing I learned most in regards to coaching football when I was young, and that was, don't trust your eyes, trust the data.
Okay.
And that old saying, right? Looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. So
Okay.
what I learned there was that oftentimes, if I would do analysis, so we would run things at practice, different kinds of challenges, and manage those and monitor those. And then all of a sudden you'd see there's these 2 or 3 or 4 kids that you would have never thought about playing them. But all of a sudden they're standing out. They're faster. They're doing things. They're making plays. They're doing things you just didn't notice. Kind of the money ball kind of effect, if you
Right.
will.
Yeah.
And so what we are really big at when we work with our clients is let's go look at what we're doing. Let's, we can talk. Everybody's talking. Everybody does reviews. Everybody does Google ads. Everybody does email marketing. But do they do it effectively? Do they manage it? Do they send it out? Do they know how many went out, how many came back, and how much money they made? That to me is the bottom line in marketing and advertising. And it gets back to what I was saying earlier. How much did I spend? How much did I make? All that stuff in the middle, that's all cool. But I don't want to get lost in there
Right.
with some sales rep that's 20 years old, that's never run a business anyway. I want to really understand what I'm making and where it's coming from, so I can go double down my efforts in that area and get rid of the stuff that's not working. Does that
So
make sense?
yeah, so I find that your approach seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong as I'm listening to you, it sounds like, yeah, we provide services and you can certainly have us for services, but the value you're trying to add to those services, so you're not just a vendor, is sort of like the marketing coach, the marketing consultant, the marketing partner, so that you're going to be talking with this client and say, okay, you want to be here, how do we help you get there?
That's exactly,
And
and
so
work
most
backwards.
in the cost effective manner, and rather than just say, well, here's a tool, go bang the world with this tool, we need to find out what the tool is going to be working for you. Because one of the things I'm always wondering about, uh, that I guess not always, but one thing I'm wondering about now, and that is the challenge for wildlife control operators, is the difficulty that they have to scale. Where a pest control company can scale easier. They have their challenge, they have their workforce challenges too. Labor, of course, a lot of people are struggling with service labor, but it's particularly acute for wildlife control operators because you have to have an individual capable who's not afraid of climbing ladders, crawl spaces, and it's so time consuming to be on site. Like when you're doing a bat job, for example, you can't just simply squirt, squirt, squirt and leave.
Right.
You're, it's a lot of ladder work. It's dangerous. And so you have to find people who are willing to do all that. And that's difficult. So when someone if they do a marketing campaign and all of a sudden they blow up and they're starting to get an inordinate amount of phone calls, they may not even be able to service those, even if they have that 50% conversion rate. They may be totally swamped by the amount of work because they simply don't have the ability to do it. And then you wonder, is there going to be a boomerang effect that now they have a lot of angry people that aren't going to be calling them anymore? I mean, this is a challenge I have here in Lewistown, just trying to find a plumber. You'll call, leave a message on the machine, and you hope they call you back.
Well, and so here's the thing, and this is again old dog to old dog.
Mm,
So I get that. I'm
yeah.
64 years old. Okay, so I get that, and I come from a time when when I was a sales rep, we used to get what we called the sales rep zit right here, and that was from stopping and using the damn dirty stinking payphones and having that dirty disgusting thing up against your cheek here, and you get a zit
Yeah,
right there.
yeah. Oh, that's old school. Yeah,
Oh, and you had a
payphones. Okay.
I had a Rand McNally map, etc.
Yeah.
In today's day and age, there's no excuse for even a single operator not to be able to at least talk to people very quickly, if not within moments, with cell phone technology, with messaging technology. What it is, it's getting over your reluctance and stubbornness just not to want to do it because you're busy, you're in the field, and you're
Right.
not used to say, hang on a second, I need to take this call. However, what you're saying is real, and it's something that would need to be thought through um, in the planning process. So, for example, right now, in many of the companies we work with, we're working towards rodent season. The winter's
Mm,
coming,
that's right. Yep.
rodents are coming in. And then you get the two kinds of companies, one that will make money and are looking to do rodent exclusion work,
Hmm.
and then those that are looking to just come a bait and trap and run on down the road.
Right.
And the client, when you look at what does the customer need? They need the exclusion more than they need the elimination. They need the exclusion. They need to make sure they get it done. So what we will say to a company, I will say to them, you need to get a partner. If you don't want to do it, at the very least, you should have a partner company, a good resource that you're going to go out and do the inspection, and you'll use them, and maybe they give you a finder's fee, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you get into that point to where your business exceeds your ability to actually either scale with it or do it, you need to do something, because the last thing you want to do, the worst thing you can do, is just get frustrated and not return calls and not worry about it and basically think, well, there's nothing I can do. No, you don't want to be there. That's a tough spot to overcome. And people will remember that, and people
It
will tell
will.
their friends, and
Yep.
others will know that, yeah, don't call that guy shit. He never returns his calls. He
Oh, I
never
know.
gets back to me. It's just like these Christmas
Uh,
tree guy. Like, I'll show you this guy here. I'll show you right here. So this guy here, if you're
okay.
in Las Vegas and you want Christmas tree lights, you call
That's
this dude.
that's the
He
man.
showed
All right.
up. He's a wonderful young kid. He tried as much as he could to get me the date I wanted.
Hmm.
You just don't see so much of that anymore. So
Right.
be
Right.
that guy.
Yeah.
That's part of the
Uh,
domination system.
yeah, I really liked it. So your idea was, find partners that you can, refer the work to, because
Yep.
at least doesn't make the customer angry. And so for me, just to speaking as a customer here and where I live, and that was, I used to be in service. I used to go out and chase the squirrels too and go after that sort of thing. And things people do get busy, but I was like, you can change your answering machine. I because what I needed was not an emergency, and I could wait.
Right.
I just wanted to be in the queue. Right. So if I had to wait 2 weeks, I was cool with that. I would have been fine to wait 2 weeks. I just needed to know that I was on the list, and that I could be serviced. Or you find that partner, or raising rates. Is that would that be a legitimate way of trying to maybe tamp down some of the service and just kind of
So
maybe do a 5%, 10% rate
yes.
increase to?
So there is, in sales, there's 10 different types of buying customers. One of them is referred to as the competitive shopper, which
Mhm.
is the worst. And you don't want to revolve your business around people that are just shopping price. There are others that are emergency, that are newcomers into the market, that are absolutely the customers you want. They don't care. They're just calling, as long as you're not ridiculous,
Right.
they're just calling to get a problem solved. And that's the market you want. And that's who you want to really focus in on. And they're willing to pay a little bit more. Again,
Hmm.
I use my wife as an example. So we moved to Nevada. She was certain that we were going to be overrun by scorpions and we weren't going to live through it, etc. So she calls around. Well, she pays for the platinum program. So
Yeah.
instead of paying, I don't know, whatever it is, $60 a month, we pay $79 a month. And it's just because she wants that, because she just wants to know somehow in the back of her mind, she thinks we're more safe. So
Right.
you want to market to those types of individuals. We refer to them as buyer personas, but the bigger spenders, et cetera. And you want to do it in a way that's not offensive or
Right.
exclusionary.
Right.
But hey, this is given the choice. If you have three different people, you're going to pick the one that's easiest to deal with, that's got the most to spend, et cetera. So yes, those are all, again, part of when we go through working with a company, we go through a workshop, and it's to develop all of the things that you're talking about, which
Mhm.
is, you know, pricing, profitability, different buyer personas. The content needs to reach out to those people specifically we're trying to reach, not everybody. And then, then just go for it. And I think the things you're talking about, just being able to know where I am, you can get so much stuff today that can automate that. You can literally have people reaching out to you, and we do this on a message on your website. The message is automatically returned. It goes into a calendar and a schedule or a sequence where you're notified. Hey, Casey Lewis just called today. Here's his message. He's got a raccoon problem. He wants to get somebody out there. You can even have them, if you wanted to go so far, You could even have them schedule their own appointment, pay the deposit, do all of these things in an automated fashion. So all of those kinds of things
Yeah, that's
are
amazing.
available today.
Yeah.
And they all go in a sequence. First thing is the website, the traffic, the leads, and the
Mhm.
sales. Got to get that going consistently and on a regular basis so you can count on the cash flow. And then after that, we can start to dial in all the cool stuff, create the campaigns, and to start to really try to effectively grow sales revenues and do it profitably.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Oh, I think there's some really powerful things there. So, and I hope our audience certainly would agree with that. In that, you also have a podcast, I understand. So, do take a few moments and talk about that for the audience.
Yeah, so one of the things I did, and I listened to your podcast, which I think is a great one, and
Well, thank you.
there's about 8 or 9 now that are
Yeah.
sort of pest control related podcasts, relating from marketing companies to consultants like yourself to even just some regular guys that have a podcast that are
Mhm.
talking bugs and insects. And there's not too many on wildlife. There's one guy out of the south that works with a lot of wildlife guys that he
Out
owned,
of
I think, a pest
out of
control in Georgia.
Georgia, yeah, the Atlanta, yeah, he's more of the, I think I'm more on the fur side, but I think he
Yeah,
does a little bit of damage control as well. I've been on that podcast. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've spoken with him, but yeah, there's not
well,
many in the wildlife
yeah,
control side. We're at trophic levels, as I tell you. So there's always going to be more grass than there is insects, and there's always going to be more insects than there are wildlife. So it's like a pyramid, and the farther you go up, the fewer there is. And so we're
but
about
the
10% what the pest control industry is.
but the thing is, if you're a wildlife guy, you got to grow your business, you got to manage your
Absolutely,
growth, you got to
absolutely,
sell
yeah,
more. It's all the same thing. But
sure, yep.
so we went out and listened to a lot of these podcasts, and in many instances, particularly where they were talking around marketing and advertising and business growth,
Mhm.
you have now a lot of software people that want to grab onto the marketing clients. So I got frustrated because I was listening to all this, and I don't know, what's a nice way to say this? I don't think they were given a straight story, let's just say.
Okay.
So I thought, just like I did with the Yellow Pages, when I left the Yellow Pages and I was a little bit upset with them, I would blog it up. And I got a ton of business when we first started this thing because there were so many frustrated Yellow Pages advertisers out there that really didn't know what to do next. And their advertising sales reps they had didn't know what to tell them, so they didn't really know what to do. Well, as we've gone into the pest control market and the pest control industry, I started to feel the same way, that I wanted to just be the old dog, good guy, talk through the BS and just be able to provide good information. So if people want to go do Google ads, hey man, it's a slot machine. You better know what you're doing, and I'll help you and I'll tell you what to do, whether you want to actually pay us to do it or you want me to just show you how to do it. We'll do it either way. The
Mm.
same thing with SEO and optimization. You got all this mystery around it. Well, what I find is most of the mystery around it is the people talking about it don't know what they're talking about. So they're just talking about some, blog article or some social media post they saw.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
they're parroting it. So this podcast we put together, and it's called the Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast, is surrounding one thing. And that one thing is to help you as a pest control operator, as a wildlife control operator, or really as a small home service business owner or operator, to do the things that you and I just talked about. How do I start? Okay. How do I know if my pest control website is any good? How do I do this, and how do I put it into a sequence of events so I can manage through my money that I'm spending, and I can know that I'll get to a point to where I'm making a profit. I'm making some money. It's not an expense any longer. That's really what we're all about.
Mm. Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast. Did I get that
That,
right?
that's
Okay.
it, sir.
Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast. We'll definitely check it out. Do you have any closing words that you would want to be sure that we something that I didn't ask you about or something you didn't say that you want to be sure the audience knows, and then follow that up with how do they get a hold of you? Definitely
Well,
give them that little elevator pitch there.
yeah, I really don't have a lot to say
Okay.
in closing other than if you're out there and you want to talk to an old guy that just gets you, help you get some information, help you get going in the right direction, you can send me an email anytime. My email is Casey, which is spelled CASEY at rhinopros.com. And I talk with industry people all day, every day. I enjoy it, as you can probably tell by the length of the podcast
Yeah, well, that's
episode we're
good.
doing here. And anytime that you maybe need some help in this area, or you just have some questions, or you're wondering if some of the stories you're hearing are accurate and correct, please give us a call, because that's all we're here to do, is to help um, pest control, wildlife, home business owners get their business going and dominate in their local market.
Very nice. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Lewis. So everyone, just so you know, we've been listening to Casey Lewis, CEO and founder of Rhino Digital Media, Inc., but you can be doing business as Rhino Pest Control Marketing. He has a podcast that you can certainly encourage you to check that out, Pest Control Marketing Domination. I'm assuming it's available in all the traditional places, so, Apple and that sort of thing.
Yes, it
The
is. Yeah, you can
store.
find it pretty much anywhere.
All right, Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast. He's got some shows, so definitely go check that out if you're looking for to learn more things about marketing here today. And so his specialty, of course, is looking at how do you get that local business marketing, which of course are service providers. You're not, why do you care about marketing your business to a place on the other end of the country? You're looking to dominate in your own particular area. So, well, it's great to have you on board. And again, you all have been listening to Living the Wildlife podcast. Do take a few moments, subscribe to the channel, reach out to me if you have criticisms, comments, suggestions for new shows. You can reach me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. Definitely join us on Facebook with the Pest Geek Podcast family. Tell us about your triumphs and trials. We'd love to have you join us there and share part of the revolution, as Franklin Hernandez calls it. And then, of course, you've been listening to Living the Wildlife. Why? We want you to live the wildlife, not be the wildlife. Take care, everybody.